Okay, hi, Natalie.
Hi, Danny.
Hi, thanks for coming here and answering some questions for us today.
Oh, definitely happy to do it.
I have 23 questions for you, and I'd like you to try and answer with as little thinking as possible. I know that is hard for a writer, but try just to give me your gut responses.
I'll try.
All right, here we go. Question number one. Do you write in book margins?
I don't know. I have a great reverence for books. I don't tend to write in them at all.
So far, everybody is like, oh my gosh, I would never. I feel like I'm the bad book lady now.
That's funny.
Okay, question two. What was the last great film that you saw?
Actually, a couple weeks ago, I saw The Worst Person in the World. I think that's what it's called. It's a Norwegian film, and it's amazing. It's just so emotional and so well shot and just beautiful. I recommend it to everyone.
Writing the name down now. Thank you. Natalie, do you sing in the shower? And if so, what song?
I don't sing in the shower. I do sing in my car. And it's usually just singing along to whatever CD I have there that I bought in the 90s and that now live in my car. So it's usually like PJ Harvey or Sloan or David Bowie or The Clash.
All really great choices. And I love that you're still listening to the CDs.
I have an old car.
Natalie, name one poet who has been a major influence on you.
Oh, that is a tricky one. I would say Juliana Spar. I think I first discovered her probably a good 15 years ago, and I love her work. And also Lisa Robertson. And there's others, but they all kind of come out of a strain of Gertrude Stein influence writing. So maybe I should say Gertrude Stein, but
I love that. I'm like, name one, and you named three. And I was going to be like, hey, only one, but then I love all of them. So I'm going to let it slide. What's your favorite word right now?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good word. I had the word chaotic running through my head yesterday, and I can't remember why, but it was in response to something. And I was like, it's all just so chaotic. It's chaotic. And yeah, that's a really good word.
It's a great word. What is the first thing you do when you wake up?
I have to rush out of bed and take my dog outside. I live in an apartment, and my poor dog, I tend to sleep in. I'm not a morning person, so she's been waiting patiently. So I rush out of bed, run down the stairs, take her outside, then come back in and put the coffee on.
Wow. I'm not talking to anyone, even a dog, before my coffee. That's powerful. So then what's the last thing you do before you fall asleep?
Oh, good question. I tend to read at night, and actually I have a terrible routine lately of spending a lot of time online, whether it's social media or Netflix or what have you, and then going to bed later than I meant to, but thinking, well, I have to read. I mean, the day's not complete unless I read. So I usually read for 5 or 10 minutes, even if it's super late.
So then do you consider yourself like a routine person?
I am, because of my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just having to take her out structures my day. And then also I have a full-time job, so that structures my day. On the weekends or when I'm on vacation, I'm not very routine. I can well, I guess I fall into sort of unproductive routines in the sense of sleeping in too late, having an intention of running an errand, but just kind of reading instead and letting the day slip away. So I would say if I had the option, I would not be a routine person at all.
I love that. What are you reading right now?
I just finished reading Patricia Lockwood's No One Is Talking About This. And yeah, I've been really interested in history lately. So I've been reading a ton of nonfiction and not a lot of fiction, but I picked that up at the library the other week and I really enjoyed it. It's one of those books where it's someone who's clearly a poet, but who is delving into it's somewhat autobiographical, but it's a novel, but it's for sure a poet's novel, which I just love.
Incidentally, I feel that way about Lisa Robertson and Juliana Sparr's forays into fiction. So
yes,
we have a type. Hey, what's your dog's name?
Her name is Rue.
Hi, Rue.
And she's lying right next to me. I will show her the back. Oh, there's her face.
Hi. Oh my gosh. She looks like a good friend.
She is. That's where she spends most of her day when I'm at home.
Are you a pen or a pencil person?
I am a pen person. I doubt I even own a pencil sharpener. So definitely pen.
Do you remember the very first thing that you ever wrote?
I have this really distinct memory of being really young. So probably just learning how to write and then writing some like rhyming words and telling my mom I'm going to be a poet. So whether that is like an accurate memory or one I've just kind of built up as my own mythology, I don't know, but it persists. So
I love that. Are you a crier? You don't have to answer this, but I just need to ask, are you a crier? Like, what was the last thing that made you cry?
I am a crier for sure. What's the last thing that made me cry? Honestly, the Patricia Lockwood novel, because it is quite sad. And yeah, I think that was, I don't remember. I probably cry so much that I'm like, I don't know, it was probably this morning.
Yeah, I don't think I could, I don't know, this morning, last night, something on the same. What was the last thing that made you cry from laughing?
This is a terrible answer. I was out with some friends on Sunday and we drank more wine than we meant to. And I remember laughing a lot, but I don't remember what specifically. I just know it was a group of friends where we just make jokes and we're absurd, a bunch of writers. So very entertaining, but I wish I could remember something, but I can't.
That feels right. Can you name one book that you think that everybody should read?
That is a tricky one. People's relationships to books are so subjective and so personal. And I resist, like the notion of the canon or just the idea that, everyone has to have this shared knowledge or that a book that really affected me is going to like be meaningful to someone else. But I think everyone should at least try to read Moby Dick and Tristram. Is it Tristram? Mm-hmm. Tristram Shandy, because those are amazing books, but they're so huge and difficult and hard to get into, and you have to be in the right place when you encounter them, but they are very worthwhile. if
A
you could
cool
do it.
choice. Love it. You know, I've never read Moby Dick. Is that bad? Maybe I won't put that in this video. I'll read
It's
it.
I mean, it's a weird book, but I love it because it's this, plot that everyone knows, but it's also like hundreds of pages of whale facts from the mid 19th century. And a lot of them are kind of no longer, current knowledge. So it's just this weird, archaic, like deep dive into whale stuff. It's very strange. So good though.
I mean, weirdly, that sold me on it more than any like conversations about great literary merit. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about you and about your poetry and about this chapbook in particular. First, I want to say this. I love hearing you read. You're such a delightful, if I don't know where the word is, that's somewhere between calming and haunting, but that's like the poetry reading space that you occupy. First of all, is there a poet, local or otherwise, that you like love listening to them read? Can you name someone?
I'm struggling to think of anyone, but I do love listening to poets read when they have a real command of like how the poetry sounds to them, and they're not sort of falling into that poetry voice or the kind of like I am performing now, but they're really connecting with the language and really delivering it in a like a I want to say an authentic way. That's not quite right, but like they're giving the language the reading that language requires. I really love that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Are you thinking about, because obviously your work is interested in linguistic play and in shape and the use of the page space, are you thinking about sound and how it will sound to read it when you're writing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think sound is probably like the fundamental piece. To me, it's like I'm not particularly interested in representational language. So when I'm writing and I'm kind of, searching for the next word, often it's not based on logic or like what I want to say, but it's based on what sound is required here or what sound does this word invoke. So it's very much a reaching for sound. And then like elements of sound, like the sounds of the words, and then the rhythm is very important too. So in the structure of the poem on the page, it's all about what is the rhythm, what is a line break going to do to how the poem sounds, how it will affect the rhythm, how it will affect the flow of sound. So that's absolutely fundamental in how I write.
That's awesome. I almost like maybe didn't expect that, because I think of your work as so, for some reason, so not for some reason, for obvious reasons, so visual and so it like cerebral in that way. But I like that it reorients the book a little bit for me to think about sound as that kind of grounding and guiding principle.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I am very, very interested in like how the poem appears on the page. So there's definitely that visual aspect is really important to me. But I think a lot about how it's that problem of notation. Like, so if I have a very particular cadence and rhythm in my head when I look at, a sentence or a set of lines, how do I notate that on the page so that the reader gets that cadence and that rhythm? And ultimately, I don't think that's really possible. I mean, I think there's a sense of failure there. And I do find when people hear me read, sometimes they kind of say, oh, it clicked into place in a way that it didn't when they read it on the page. So there, it's an interesting tension between the visual and then I guess this kind of desire to control the sonic reception of the work, which is not necessarily possible.
Let's talk about the visuals for just a little bit, because I need to ask, what is it about a square book that is so delightful?
I don't know, but I love it. I love like very compact books, especially for poetry. And I think it's that blank page and the space of the page. And then when the words just have room to breathe, like it's just so important to me. There's nothing worse. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that, but I'm not always happy when I write a very short, concise poem and then it's on sort of a large page with smaller font, and it feels like the balance between the words and the blank space is out of proportion. But it feels like in a square book, you can get that right proportion between, the words taking up space and then having room to breathe around them.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And thank you for giving us these beautiful poems to put in a square book. we're always looking for a way to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for arranging them in such a gorgeous book.
Shout out to Kate who typeset this one. Kate, wherever you are, thank you. Okay, as is very, very well documented, we here at Gap Riot are huge Blasted Tree fans. Can you, first of all, your Blasted Tree chap is a straight up delight. Can you talk a little bit about making that chapbook? And
Sure. Well, the chapbook itself is all Kyle Flemmer. He's such an amazing designer. Like he had the idea to import vellum from Europe, which is incredible. I think partly because it matched the thematic content of the chapbook, which is basically a list of Anglo-Saxon women's names. So he wanted, to invoke that historical aspect of it. And yeah, the design is just gorgeous. I love it so much. So that's all Kyle. The writing of the chapbook is, it comes out of my interest in history and a feminist view of history. And the idea that, women are so often missing from the historical record. And I guess I was playing with those ideas and wanting to write something of substance, like nonfiction or some kind of poem about that. But that's not really where my strength lies in writing. And I ended up just doing some online research and finding this database that history scholars use to catalog all the references to different people within Anglo-Saxon England, which was about 450 AD to like 1100 AD. So a time where there weren't a ton of historical records, and the ones that do exist are like wills and land grants and stuff to do with property. So basically I just went into that database, and you can search by different areas or names or gender. So I just searched women, and then of course it was a tiny fraction of the entries. So I just kind of grabbed them, all their names, and then arranged it in what I saw as a fairly poetically pleasing, rhythmic kind of way to arrange the names. So yeah, it's, I guess, a conceptual project, which I was pretty happy with. I love Old English. I didn't study it in school, unfortunately, but I just love trying to roll the names over my tongue. They're so foreign and fascinating, although then of course some of them are still in use, so they're very familiar.
It's such a fascinating project. It also feels quite different from what you're doing in post-spell. Can you talk to me about what made you want to write this chapbook?
That is a good question. So this chapbook actually came out of a bit of a project I was working on a couple years ago. So basically my process is that I just write in notebooks, and I just kind of, I try to write to a place where I'm not, I guess, right away from my ego. So in the sense that I'm not thinking as much, I'm just sort of letting the words flow and just kind of, like I mentioned before, reaching for sound and just reaching for association without controlling it too much. And in that process, sometimes I can write a paragraph or two that just has, great rhythm, great sound association. And I'm like, okay, that is the nucleus of a poem. I just need to edit it a bit. On the other hand, I can spend a lot of time and fill up a lot of pages with essentially nothing of value. So I had typed up like a bunch of notebook pages, and there's really nothing in there. Like it just wasn't cohering. But there were little, sparks of light here and there. So I didn't want to abandon it completely. And then I heard Amanda Earle, the poet from Ottawa, had this project going where poets were supposed to send postcards to one another. So you put your name down on the list, and then people send postcards to you, and you send postcards to other people. So I had every intention of doing that. I bought a bunch of postcards. Then I was like, I'm just going to go into this, these abandoned notebook pages and find some lines for each postcard. So that was my process. I went in and just wrote, 5 or 6 lines on each postcard, pulling it from this block of text that I had. And I never ended up mailing the postcards. I feel really guilty. But I did, once I had them, I kind of looked at them and was like, oh, this is a poem series. So then I typed them up, and then that's how Post began. So it was really a sort of, I want to say scavenging, that's maybe not quite the right word, but a reworking of some of my, failed or not quite working journal writing, and then just going into that and pulling little bits out and rearranging them. So it was quite a strange process, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And that's why I called it Post, just as a nod to the the postcard project that I never completed.
I love that. And also I didn't know that, which is really cool. How fabulous. So then, I mean, you have these chapbooks under your belt. You also have, a rather extensive publication history. Can you talk to me a little bit about like why a chapbook and not hoarding all of these things for a full-length manuscript down the line?
Well, I am working on a manuscript. I'm always working on a manuscript, but it's very slow going. I'm not actually a very prolific writer. But I do think like the post spell will probably, hopefully appear in whatever manuscript I manage to get together next. I love chapbooks though. I tend to write either discrete poems, so just sort of a 1 or 2 page poem, or if I do write a series, it tends to be like 10 to 15 pages at the very most. So just perfect for chapbook form. And I mean, I like manuscripts that have, discrete sections, or like they're a compilation of like poetry series. But I think it's awesome to be able to take that series and publish it on its own and let it sort of be its own thing, whether or not it then gets integrated into a manuscript. So yeah, I tend not to think or to write in book length forms. I tend to write in these smaller forms. So I think chapbooks are just the perfect vehicle for them.
That works out great for us as readers. We get our hands on it much sooner and more often. So that's good. I'm not a great counter, but I am pretty sure we are at question number 23, which is the last and the hardest question out of all of them. No pressure. If you could describe this chapbook in 3 words and 3 words only, what would they be? I told you it's hard.
Yeah, the words that are coming to my mind are such cliche reviewer words. Oh my God, I stay away from those. But I think spare. I want to say ephemeral, which I think does work. It is ephemeral, and I love the smoke on the cover. 'Cause it's so
Yes.
ephemeral too. And fluid, maybe. There's a fluidity to the poems, I think.
For sure. I think that's a beautiful summation of this book. It feels absolutely like all of those things. And thank you so much for trusting us with it.